Thank you.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I'm back there if you need me. I can always run
Into
from
the next one that we've already done a lot.
All right, good evening. The July 24th, 2024 regular meeting of the Murrieta Planning Commission is called to order. Madam Secretary, would you please call roll for determination of a quorum, please?
Thank you, Chair. Chair Harlan.
Here.
Vice Chair Bruman.
Here.
Commissioner Wojcik.
Aye.
Commissioner LaPaglia. Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Let the record reflect all commissioners are present with the exception of Michael LaPaglia with an excused absence.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We'll now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Wojcik will lead us with the pledge.
Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, sir. We'll now be moving on to the city clerk's announcements. Do we have any city clerk announcements? Oh.
I'm sitting in the audience this time. Could I get my PowerPoint up? Y'all run a lot faster than City Council, so I apologize for that. Good evening, Chair Harlan and Vice Chair Bruman and members of the Planning Commission. I know you do have a lot of business to get to, so I'm going to try and get through this as succinctly as possible. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Crystal McDonald. I'm the City Clerk for the City of Murrieta. I'm before you today just to offer a little bit of engagement when it comes to the upcoming November election and upcoming commission vacancies, the scheduled vacancies that are going to be before us. Before I do move on, it's important for me to say that I am the impartial public official, and so I don't support nor oppose any candidates, elected officials, commissioners, or applicants. So I just think it's important for you all to know that. I'm here to provide equal access and information to all community members, not just elected or commissioners. So I do want to talk about the November 5th election. You all know about that, hopefully. We do consolidate with the County of Riverside, but as a city clerk, I'm actually your local elections official, and what that means is I administer the local election, and when it comes to candidates and any measures or initiatives, which we do not have this coming election, we only have candidates. So, city council members, the purpose is, you know, they basically drive the policy, right? And so I have up there the purpose that's kind of set in our documentation, and it's really, they provide vision for the city. Requirements to become a council member, to get on the ballot, you have to have resided and registered to vote in the district in which you seek office, and you have to be registered by 20 registered voters in that same district. Council meetings are held the first and third Tuesday of every month. And there are special meetings and workshops, as you all know that, and there are subcommittee assignments. There's a lot of time and energy and effort that goes into it, just like you guys, but I just wanted to, I think it's important for folks to know what's involved. So we have 5 districts in Murrieta, and districts 3 and 4 will be on the November ballot. And so I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that those are what is open. Those are the open seats. And so potential candidates can actually pull and file. They're called nomination papers. They can do that with me. The filing period is July 15th. It started already, through August 9th, 5 p.m. That's pursuant to the elections code. If the incumbent, you have 2 incumbents that are available for re-election. If they do not file, it is extended to August 14th, but that is only if they do not file or qualify. Anyone who intends to do this needs to file with me, pull and file with me, so it's important that you come to my office. So if anybody is interested in running for council, it's a big job, but it is available to anybody who lives in Districts 3 and 4 currently for this election. You would schedule an appointment with me. You can call me, you can email me, you can just swing by. If you're interested, I just suggest you do that. You do that sooner than later. And I do have some resources on the website, and so on there you can look at campaign filings, Form 700 filings, which you all know a lot about. There's noticing, and then also I actually have the list of those who have pooled for filing, those who have actually filed, and those who have qualified. I update that at the end of business every business day until the close of the nomination period. So I will be updating it today as soon as I'm done here. By the way, there's no changes from yesterday, but I will do it anyways. So if you are interested, please contact me. If you're interested in volunteering or doing some participating in your local government and you're not ready to be a city council member, there are commission, committees, and boards that I would like to share with the constituents. There are some upcoming appointments. We currently have 5 commissions and boards. They're listed there. They're self-explanatory. The Transactions and Use Tax Citizens Oversight Committee, that's known as Measure T. That's based off of Measure T that you all passed. It's an oversight committee, so that's the only one that I felt the need to explain. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. We have 8 regular scheduled vacancies on all of these commissions. I have the specificities if anybody wants to reach out to me, but we do have 8. We have 2 alternates that are scheduled vacancies as well, and then a youth. So unlike city council, it is not done through the election process. It's an application process. You are all familiar with that. Applications, I accept them actually year round, so I'm really here to try and get folks to apply for any commission, committee, and board. It's just kind of necessary. Things are expiring. I hold them for 2 years. And anybody who submits the application, if you're not ready to apply for this upcoming one, you can, when I call you to find out, you can just say no, you'll pass, or you can ask me to withdraw it. But nevertheless, if you're interested, I'm just encouraging anybody to apply. That would be great. There will be an upcoming 30-day application period. It's going to happen about October, November-ish. And then there is a city council subcommittee that interviews all applicants. And that currently is Councilmember DeForest and Councilmember Holliday. And then after the subcommittee does the interviews, they will take it to council, and the council is the final answer, so to speak. They will actually appoint at an open city council meeting. Planning commissioners, as you all know, there's a little additional step. You all get interviewed during the council meeting at the open session. It's just, it's interesting to watch, but nevertheless, that's the requirement that is imposed on the planning commissioners. So I'm here just to say if anybody's interested, there's a QR code that will take you to the website that has the application. I have these cool little cards that are in the foyer. Anybody grab them. And I'm really, pass them out to your neighbors, business owners who live in Murrieta. Just try and get the word out because we really need some engagement at this time. There's my contact information. I'm certainly available to answer any questions of the Planning Commission. And I thank you for your time, Chair.
Outstanding. For those watching online and for anyone here watching here in person, recent Saturday I had an opportunity to attend a volunteer workshop that Crystal put on where she did a deep dive into this for about an hour and a half, and a fantastic resource. So if anybody's interested, please have her reach out. It makes our city better. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chair.
Okay, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Seeing none.
I'd like to call for a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, please do a roll call vote.
Chair Harlan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vrooman.
Aye.
Commissioner Wojcik.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, 4-0.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to public comments. At this time, we will take public comments. Any person may address the Planning Commission on any subject pertaining to city business which does not relate to any item listed on the agenda or the consent calendar. Normally, no action may be considered or taken by the Planning Commission on any matter not listed on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Madam Secretary, do we have any non-agenda public comments?
Seeing none,
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We're now moving on to the public hearing. So the public hearing is open at 6:11 for Development Plan Permit 2023-00027 and Conditional Use Permit 2024-00028 for a repair and maintenance motor vehicle use type NTA tire shop. Are there any members of the Planning Commission that wish to abstain or recuse themselves from this item? All good? Seeing none, we'll move on to the staff presentation. Staff, may we have a report, please?
Thanks, Chair. Tonight we have Assistant Planner Rod Salazar with the presentation.
Yes, good evening, Chairman Harlan and Vice Chair Vrooman and fellow commissioners. My name is Rod Salazar, Assistant Planner with the Development Department, and I'm presenting the project for your review tonight, the first project for your review tonight. Joining me is Jarrett Ramaya, Deputy Director of the Development Services Department, and also we have additional staff from Engineering, Building, and Fire for the Commission's questions if they so need. The project before you is a request from DMA Architects for the development plan and conditional use permit for MTA Tires business to construct and operate a commercial building to perform vehicle maintenance and repair services, as well as install tires and aftermarket wheels. The proposed project is a 4,995 square foot, 2-story building on 0.68 net acre lot with a lobby and sales area, mezzanine for offices, 6 service bays, a parking lot, landscaping, and a trash enclosure. The maximum building height on this building is 27 feet, 11 inches. A conditional use permit is required to operate a vehicle repair and tire store for the community commercial zone. The project is located just east of Madison Avenue, south of Murrieta Hot Springs Road, just south of the Walmart Center. The existing CarMax facility is east of the project, and across Madison Avenue are the Residence Inn and Courtyard Murrieta hotels. The site has a general plan designation of commercial, and the zoning of the vacant site at the moment is community commercial, and this use is allowed in this zoning with a conditional use permit. The surrounding zoning of the project to the north, south, east, and west are all community commercial zones. The project is proposed to have two entrances to the business, both off an existing private drive aisle that is access for CarMax facilities right now. And the main road fronting the project is Madison Avenue. And the 2 entrances, one's to the north and one is to the east of the business. This site plan shows that service bay access annotated by the red arrows and the fire access around the building. There's a trash enclosure that will be on the southeast corner of the property. This is the mezzanine plan that shows the mezzanine for offices that will be overlooking the sales and lobby area below. It's about 350 square feet just for that mezzanine. As shown in the elevations, the building is a modern style stucco face building with decorative accented awnings over the service bay doors and windows. The roof of the building also matches the color and material of a neighboring hotel across the street to the west. For the statement of operations, the business does plan to operate 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays, and will be closed on Sundays. Currently, there are 7 full-time employees with MTA Tire. The project has been determined to be exempt from CEQA under Section 15332, Infill Development Projects. The applicant will file a notice of exemption upon approval of the project. We did receive a letter this afternoon. It was a legal letter from a representative of adjacent property owner, and the letter states concerns with compliance with the noticing procedures and asked for the commission to continue the item until September 11th. Public hearing notice was published in the newspaper on July 13th, which meets the state law requirements. And the site was also posted. So in closing, staff recommends to adopt a notice of exemption for the project pursuant to the guidelines and implementation of CEQA and the approval of a development plan 2023-00027 and conditional use permit 2024-00028 to construct and operate a repair and maintenance facility for motor vehicles located off of Madison Avenue based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibit A, Exhibit B, and the Statement of Operations in Exhibit C. Thank you for your time tonight, and that concludes my presentation of this project. I'm available for any questions. We also have the owner of the project here and the applicant to help with any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Salazar. Mr. Fisher, any questions?
Well, I'm confused. I thought that there was a continuance on this.
Can I ask something on that? So I have a question. We did get the letter.
Yes.
Is it the applicant's desire to continue this evening? Can we hear from him real quick on that issue alone?
Yes, sir,
And if
he is
so,
here.
Bring it back? Okay.
We have the owner that's going to address the Planning Commission.
You'd state your name for us, that'd be appreciated.
Yes, my name is Rocky Liao.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I just got this letter literally 10 minutes before coming here. So I haven't really had time to think about everything. I wouldn't be opposed to, maybe like a couple weeks to get in contact with them and see what it is that their concern is. But I don't know if I'd like to go as far as September.
So I know that our next hearing is August 14th.
Yes.
Would that be acceptable to continue to that date, or
Yes.
would you rather have us go forward this evening?
No, I think that the August 14th would be acceptable.
Okay. Based on that, I don't want to waste everybody's time this evening and ask questions if it's going to be coming back. So I would just make a motion to continue this matter to August 14th.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that motion for continuance to August 14th.
I'll look to the legal counsel. Are we?
Yeah, this is perfectly, it's at the commission's discretion, but with the applicant on board as well, that's perfectly reasonable motion and second, so now it's just up for a vote.
Okay, appreciate that. So we have a motion and a second. Going to have a roll call vote, please.
Chair Harlan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vrooman.
Aye.
Commissioner Wojcik.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously, 4-0.
We'll see you on the 14th.
Absolutely appreciate your flexibility. Okay, so now we will move on to Development Plan Permit 2023-00024 and tentative track map number 2023-00014, TTM 38579, the Oak Crest Townhomes Residential Project. Are there any members of the Planning Commission that wish to abstain or recuse themselves from this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to the staff presentation.
Yeah,
Staff, we have a report.
Sorry, Chair. We have Chris Tracy, Senior Planner, here tonight on this item, and I'll turn it over to Chris here. He's getting set up.
Yeah. Thank you, Carl. All right. So good evening, Planning Commission Chair and fellow Planning Commissioners. As Carl mentioned, my name is Chris Tracy. I'm a Senior Planner here with our Advanced Planning Division. Tonight, I'll be providing a presentation on Development Plan Permit number 2023-00024 and related tentative track map 2023-0014, which is known as the Oak Crest Townhome Residential Project with a recommended action. And I just want to have that in the record as the numbers. To set the location for the Commissioner's reference, the proposed project is located at the northeast portion of the city, east of the 215, east of Costco, and more specifically at the northeast corner of Clinton Keith and Whitewood Roads. The development plan as proposed contains 243 units within 41 townhome buildings, and will be offered as a for sale type of product. It'll provide for 197 three-bedroom units, 46 three-bedroom plus loft or optional fourth bedroom. 23 two-story buildings is proposed and 18 three-story. Next, in terms of zoning, the project's located within the multifamily 2 zone. To the north, south, and west, this has the same designation. To the east is this SF2 single-family 2 zone. Also, for context, on the right side of the screen is an aerial map. This is a site layout. In the middle portion of the screen is the tan color. That's the 3-story buildings. Surrounding that, around the perimeter, in the lighter red, that's the 2-story configuration. The proposed density is at 15.1 dwelling units per acre. The general plan is multifamily residential for the site. The zoning is multifamily 2, as I mentioned earlier. The total parking provided is 629 spaces. Two-car garage parking will be offered for all units. On-site amenities will be provided, including a pool, spa, tot lot, and outdoor lounge, and I'll go into more detail further in the presentation. Next, staff wanted to highlight some of the environmental review milestones to get here. We did a 15183 consistency analysis, and there's technical studies that did that review. That's provided in your agenda packet today. The project will be required to adhere to the general plan mitigation measures and project design features as conditions of approval. We had extensive tribal consultation with the Pechanga Tribal Nation under AB 52, and we did have measures moving forward and project design features to address resources on site. We also had extensive biological review with this project. We had extensive discussions with the Riverside Conservation Authority and both the California and U.S. Fish and Wildlife agencies. And we've incorporated avoidance measures as mentioned. On your screen here is a summary of the project plan types with the associated square footages. Next, with regards to architecture, it's overall a modern farmhouse style. It'll be utilizing multiple shades of cool grays with accent white stucco walls. And on your screen here is a 5-unit, 2-story configuration, and there's 2 elevation types with each building. Moving forward here, we have the 3-story configuration. These are in 6 units. It should be noted that all buildings comply with the maximum allowable height standards. The height for the 2-story buildings at a maximum is 32 feet. The maximum height for the 3-story buildings is at 41 feet. In terms of landscaping, the MF2 zone requires a minimum of 10%, and this project exceeds that amount. The project provides for extensive landscaping along all road frontages. There will be also enhanced landscaping throughout the project and decorative hardscape features. On your screen here is a conceptual landscape plan for the project. This is an enlargement of that recreational area I mentioned earlier. To highlight some of the proposed components, there's actually going to be 2 pools, one for lap swimming and the others for wading. The pool building will include restrooms and showers. There'll be a pool deck, outside lounge with barbecue grills and seating, 2 recreational lawn areas, and a playground. And lastly, as a reminder, the project is required to comply with the Housing Accountability Act. I just wanted to provide this as a reminder. The act was first passed in 1982 as housing was become more scarce. The HAA establishes a state's overarching policy that a local government cannot deny, reduce the density of, or make a housing development project infeasible when it's consistent with standards. Denial could only occur under very specific circumstances. There has to be a specific adverse impact on public health and safety, and that's a very high legal bar to hit. And there's also fines that are associated if the city acted in bad faith. In closing, staff recommends the following actions. Hold a public hearing. Consider and approve the notice of exemption for projects consistent with a community plan or zoning designation pursuant to guidelines for implementation of CEQA 15183, Title 14, Division 6, Chapter 3 of the California Code of Regulations and Public Resource Code, Section 21083.3, and adopt a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Murrieta approving development plan permit number 2023-00024 and tentative track map 2023-00014, tentative track map 38579 for the construction of 243 townhome units and the subdivision of 17.26 acres into 11 parcels and associated offsite improvements located at the northeast intersection of Clinton Keith Road and Whitewood Road, and APNs 392-330, 003, 007, 020, and 021. Staff thanks you for the opportunity to present this tonight, and we're available to answer any questions. The applicants team's here as well, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy. Appreciate the presentation. There's, just in case, just as awareness, there was over 2,343 pages of supporting documentation. So I know you and the team have certainly done some work on this one, so thank you. We'll take questions from the commission members to staff. Mr. Fisher, would you like to kick it off?
Are these at market rate value?
Correct, they'll be market rate.
No low-income housing associated to this project?
That hasn't been identified to us by the applicant. It's going to be a for sale market rate project.
And as far as CEQA goes, all terms of CEQA have been met?
That's correct. There's been an extensive analysis, as commented earlier, on this project from all the CEQA issues.
I'll reserve any more comments for later.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Vrooman?
Yes, thank you, Chris, for the presentation. Just a few questions for you and one comment. Arndt Lane, which is the current dirt road there on the east side of the project there, or street, is that going to be dedicated city road?
Yeah.
As part of this project, at least that portion of it?
Correct. They're going to have to do their frontage improvements and, I believe maybe a one-lane width in addition to that, potentially, to get for turning movement.
Fire trucks and the likes there. And then ingress and egress, as far as traffic goes, are cars going to be able to make left turns out of Arndt Lane onto Clinton Keith, or right turn only?
There'll be a stoplight. It'll be signalized intersection. It's also, there's going to be, I believe, some coordination with a project across the street. On Whitewood Road, I believe that is a right in, right out. There's going to be a median, a landscape median over there.
Okay, that was my next question. So just ingress there, and the signalization will be part of this project, or is it tied to the I guess, the apartments across the street that's under construction right now?
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, Commissioner, the project that you see under grade, that is the project that is responsible for implementing the signalized intersection. This project would contribute. If that other project did not go through, though, this project would be responsible for implementing that signal. So we'll have a signalized intersection at the end of the day.
Between whichever, a race to finish whatever project?
Correct.
Got it. Okay, and then as far as the complex there, garages on each of the units, are they one car, two car, or a mix thereof?
They're all two-car garages, and I have some floor plan layouts here just for your edification. It also will provide space for the waste containers for recycling and organics and regular waste.
Very good. That's the only questions I have. The only other comment I would make is I appreciate home ownership here in town, and especially those at the market rate that for condominiums, for people wanting to maybe get out of apartments into something, transition into an owner-based housing, and maybe they can't afford or don't want a single-family home or whatever that they might be wanting to have. But I appreciate this project in that regard.
thank you for those comments.
Thank you, Mr. Vrooman. Mr. Wojcik?
Thank you for the presentation, Chris, and it was a lot of pages in that attachment to our agenda. So I'd say we'd be burning paper, but it was all electronically delivered. I think the project looks really nice. I'm happy that we're able to do something like that. A couple questions, though. If I understand correctly, there's going to be no ingress or egress to the project from Clinton Keith.
That's correct. There's an existing median in that roadway. I think it's an urban arterial. It's got a very high classification under Riverside's standards. It was a county project that was built a couple years back. But for safety, that's how it's been designed. We have our traffic people here if you have additional questions with that.
Okay. So then the only ingress and egress will be Whitewood to the west, and is it Arndt?
Yeah.
Arndt?
Arndt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Arndt to the east. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
And then just in terms of long-term planning, I know Whitewood punches all the way through to Keller. Is Arndt set up the same way where there's easements amongst all the other parcels going north to making it to Keller?
Arndt will end up at Baxter because it won't be able to go through the Golden City development.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it could eventually go all the way up to Baxter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we have the ingress on the west side, and egress as well, and then the ingress and egress on the east side. No other locations. So in the traffic report, I had a question. On page 11, it talks about as you're going west on Clinton Keith and you approach Arndt, we're not going to add a right turn lane only off of Clinton Keith. And on page 11, this is what I wanted to ask you about. It says the reason they're not doing that is because there's no more than 17 vehicles during peak hours in the morning or the evening that would be using that. Does anybody in this room agree with that statement?
That's correct. The percentage that is coming from Clinton Keith from the east is not as high as what's coming from the 215. The majority of the traffic could be coming from the 215.
I agree with that, but we got 240 some odd homes and only 17 vehicles will be using Arndt during peak hours?
Coming from Clinton.
Coming from the east?
Correct.
Okay, I don't see that. I mean, I understand that's what the report says, but I drive this all the time. I don't see how it's only going to be limited to 17 cars. I guess another question I have is, so the traffic study was done in 2022. Since then, we've added Costco. We've changed the high school hours through the state mandates, everything starting at 8:30. We punched Clinton Keith all the way through to Winchester Road. And I know that the traffic study anticipated some of this stuff, but I think it would be prudent if we actually got a new traffic study, because in 2022, it was hypothetical. In 2024, we're living it. And if we did an updated traffic study, I think the numbers are going to be somewhat different at least from what I've experienced. I know Whitewood and Clinton Keith, I think under this plan, under this study, is rated as an F at that intersection. And I think even with mitigations, it's still going to be an F. Is that accurate?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, with or without the project, the intersection baseline is LOS F. CEQA removed level of service as a tool for measurement a couple years ago. They went to a VMT analysis. So also I would add that the project will pay TUMP fees towards regional road improvements, such as the Keller interchange and other ones in the area.
Okay.
I would also caution here just on scope creep, like when a project comes in, the baseline is when the project's submitted. And so we can't keep asking the applicant to do new studies after that. That's their baseline. So
I understand.
So
I
we
just
have
think-
to adhere to that. That's kind of like basic planning. So every time a project comes to hearing, we can't say, well, we need a new traffic study because somebody built something, right? We have to be careful there.
I understand. I would think there'd be certain extenuating circumstances where that can be revisited. I mean, it's not every day you get a Costco built in your backyard, but, and high schools changing their hours and
Oh,
things like that.
Commissioner, our traffic engineer has a point.
I just want to say about Costco. Costco was opened in August 2022, and the traffic study collected counts in October of 2022, which was after Costco was opened.
Okay.
So when the traffic counts were done, that included the real traffic Costco numbers. And so, and in addition to that, there's a 2% growth to that was applied to existing traffic counts. So that adjusted to, anything else that, could have not been collected at that time. And the cumulative projects that were approved and pending were also included in the vicinity. So between the cumulative projects and Costco's real numbers and 2% growth to existing counts should have already accounted for all this, upcoming projects.
When was Clinton Keith punched through to Winchester? Is that after?
I think it was 2018 from my memory.
No, the realignment.
Oh, Clint Keith all the way to Winchester?
Yeah, the realignment.
I think it was completed in 2017, 2018.
No,
I think it's just recent.
it was just, I think.
No, to Leon, right? It went to Leon
Yeah,
first.
Yeah, not,
where it took you around.
yeah, where
Yeah.
they created the bridge. That's what I'm talking
Right,
about. Yeah.
right.
And
Okay.
Commissioner, just some additional information is that the trigger for that intersection to then be required for a decel would be about 65 trips at peak time. So it's about 5 times what we're looking at today. And so I don't see the value in requesting additional information under traffic, because that would be a significant increase in traffic that we'd be modeling, which I don't think would occur.
Right, and just to add on to that, so most people, as evidenced by the traffic study, will be going to the 215, not coming from Winchester along Clinton Keith. So it's just that one right-hand turn lane, people coming from the east coming this way. They will have a left-hand turn lane here turning into our.
And just to add to that, it would be like someone coming home from a late shift and coming home at that time. That would be the peak times that you're describing there.
I'm figuring 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, like someone that has a late shift, they're coming home, and typically, a lot of folks jump on the freeway and go to San Diego for day shifts, things like that. So I don't know that for the peak time that we're looking at, would we see a significant uptick if we remodeled it? I'm doubtful of that.
It's 17 cars? I mean, I just don't believe it. You have people that will be commuting into, possibly the desert, and will be accessing that route through Clinton Keith into French Valley, Winchester, and then going through Banning, Beaumont. And I just don't know how it's only 17 cars for 243 homes. I mean,
No, it's only that one direction. That's what I'm trying to clarify, Commissioner. It's only people coming westbound on Clinton Keith from the Winchester area, not people going eastbound on Clinton Keith from the freeway. That's not included. That's only
understand
referring to the people coming the other way.
Right.
There's not a lot of people that
coming
commute
home.
that way to go do things. Like, our numbers bode that out. Our traffic model in the city bodes that out. Most people go to the freeway.
Okay. I would say probably 80, 85%. I don't know 17 cars, but.
Just for context, I want to add, sorry.
I'm sorry?
I just wanted to add, the peak hour at that time is 84 total. So that's the entire project is 84 peak hour trips in the PM. So 20% of that is what's coming into Clinton Keith from the east. So that's where the 17 is coming from, is just 20%, about the 20% of the peak hour trips.
And is that trips based on just this project or everything that's going to be happening northbound?
Just this project, because that's who's accessing our lane at this time.
Okay. All right. No further questions.
Can clarify something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So that was my question about this project is based upon those 17 trips. Now, would we get another look at it, I suppose, if, like what Mr. Steele said, if Arndt Lane gets pushed and continued on all the way through to Baxter, you know, it could be used as a cut through, or there's other development and things like that. Would that then cause that right turn lane to be relooked at and saying, hey, we probably need it at this point in time? Because that right turn lane would only, for those, what you're saying is for those 17 cars, you know, during those peak hours on this project alone probably wouldn't be needed. But if further development came down, then that would be something we could take a relook at.
Correct, Vice Chair Vrooman. I think that's sort of what we're getting at with Commissioner Wojcik as well. Like, if it's warranted that turn lane might be needed in the future, but it might be if there's another development project that comes in on Arndt Lane. This is just really the first project that's coming in since we did the general plan update and we changed all this residential. So it just doesn't trigger the need for that yet, but it may be triggered with the next project or a couple of projects ahead. But yeah, we'll be dealing with it in the future.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Does this project, being that it's 3 floors, 2 floors, 1 floor, does it have an elevator?
No, it's all stairway.
All stairway?
Yes. Usually an elevator kicks in at 4 stories or more.
4 stories or more. So if I'm moving into the 3rd floor, I got to carry everything up the stairs. Is that correct?
The architects here, if you'd like to ask a little bit more about that.
Chris, I don't think any of the front doors are on the 3rd floor. Is that right?
Correct. You enter on the ground floor and all.
Yeah, front doors are ground floor, 2nd floor. Yeah.
Yeah, let me.
Yeah. Got
So it'd be like bedrooms would be up on the 3rd floor, but not the front door.
Correct. Yeah. On the 3-story buildings at the ground floor, you would either have a study or a little desk niche or a little powder room to go with that. And that's kind of the extent of it, and the garage. So all the living will be occurring on the 2nd and 3rd level for the most part.
Mr. Fisher, you good? Okay. Thank you. A couple follow-up questions as well. So looking at the park impact, the pool, game lawn, pet area, et cetera, is that residents only?
Residents and their guests.
Yeah. Thank you. School impact and considerations?
Yes. So it's they're going to have to pay the fees, the school impact fees for this project. It's in the Menifee School District for elementary school and middle school, and the Paris School District for high school.
Got it. Thank you. On-site parking, I think actual was 629, if I recall. What would be code? Are we plus or minus?
I believe we're right at it. Let me, sorry.
Would any overflow parking be out on the street?
There's no available on-street parking in the area, and I believe the applicant's focus is on providing garage parking and guest parking because this would be a higher-end ownership situation. So I think with their familiarity is that there's a strong demand, so they want to make sure that they provide adequate parking. It does meet code, and Chris will fill in the blanks.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, it complies with what's required. Total parking required 629 spaces, provided 629. So it's meeting it right on.
Okay. Trash receptacles, are those backed up against a wall so that there's no blind spots driving through?
They'll probably be wheeled out to the alleyways on trash pickup days. The storage occurs in the garages for organic, recycling, and regular waste. This was routed to waste management. There also will be a condition that the project has one common recycling and regular trash bin for the common areas. It'll have one of our standard enclosures for that type of setup. And that'll serve the recreational areas and the common open spaces.
Great. The mailbox, look to me, I counted 4 mailbox community boxes throughout the community. I guess my question there, and I know Jarrett and I ran into it, is that something we want to look at is maybe, if you have 4 boxes for 243 homes, perhaps designate that area as a loading zone?
Chair, it's a good point. I think the situation we looked at was on a public street. These would be private streets on the area. Certainly, when we come down to building permit plans, that's a conversation that we have with the applicant to make sure that there's a striped area in front of the community boxes, because we've all walked to that central box, and usually what the developer does is stripe it so that folks can't park in front of it very long. You want some ability to pick up a package. Some are heavy, but I think that's the focus on that one. But good point, Chair. We'll make sure that during building plans that we'll make sure that there's no contradiction with picking up your mail.
Okay, thank you. Similar to what Mr. Wojcik was speaking about, when you look at the analysis and the assumptions regarding the traffic for the area with the 2% and from 2022 to 24. So you're confident that that 4% lift from 2022 to where we are now will support seamless and efficient traffic flow through that area?
Yes, that's a typical growth and even used in Riverside County. So 2% per year growth is a typical.
Okay, thank you. I know traffic's something that's spoken about quite a bit within the city. If I was looking at it looks like the study area, the intersection analysis was the 215 southbound and northbound off and on ramps, and then primarily the Clinton Keith, Warm Springs, Whitewood kind of intersection. I saw reference there of a CMP, which I believe is a congestive management plan. So is it standard procedure on a project like this that you just look at that immediate intersection? Or do you also look at anything up and downstream, right? Because whatever hits one area is going to go somewhere else, right? Is it just that main intersection?
Per our traffic study guidelines, a project that generates 50 or more peak hour trips to the intersections are the study area intersections. So we don't go further than, as they get distributed into the local roadways, it's less and less than 50 trips per hour. So the study area is defined by those number of trips.
Got it. So if we find that, somewhere downstream we happen to have bottlenecks because of something perhaps upstream, does this CMP management plan where it talks about accessing transportation funds, is that maybe a tool or something that could be utilized to help long-term with that corridor?
That CMP is more of a Riverside County identified areas, so none of the intersections were part of a CMP. So that was just, in the traffic study was just identifying that it was not required.
Okay. Are we able to sync the lights on the 215 with the city lights? I know in the past it was Caltrans and city and they weren't synced, and I believe Mr. Holliday was getting some synergies there. Are we able to sync those together to help with that flow over the 215?
Currently, they are synced along Clinton Keith Road and Murrieta Hot Springs Road. Those two corridors are synchronized currently. This includes Caltrans ramps. Caltrans maintains it. However, we coordinate with them to, so for example, if it's 122nd coordination, they can coordinate with us. They do half a cycle, so that means a 60 cycle length. But currently, it's all coordinated along Clinton Keith.
Sounds like we're working together, which is a good thing, right?
We are.
So then looking at what Mr. Wojcik talked about, the 2%, compounded to 4 in this particular intersection, you're confident and comfortable based on what we're seeing with this study that traffic will flow through seamlessly?
Well, the traffic study met the requirements of the city traffic guidelines, so we are satisfied with the traffic study.
Okay. That's all I have. Go ahead. You have something else?
I had one more question as I saw the map up there on the project. You have several of the streets labeled fire lane. Are the streets going to be individually named? I'm just kind of thinking of police and fire. I know we have the magic of GPS on the units, on the mobile units, the CAD units, in the cars and things like that. But are they individually street named, or how is it going to be addressed?
We can speak to that from planning's perspective. I think we will work with the applicant on a street naming application, usually afterwards, and we'll take this to our design review committee. We'll coordinate this with fire and police, kind of with those discussions on what makes sense, and kind of issue conditions from there in terms of access. It's very important that, you know, the project's known as far as 911 goes and for deliveries and things like that. And we actually had a name change from Whitewood to Oakcrest, so there's a little bit more of a distinction on this location.
Yeah, I'm just thinking there's a lot of internal streets inside the development, and I'm thinking of other condominium projects here in town, and I realize they're all going to be private roads, but I'm also thinking like a former cop. And, you know, it just makes it easier in your mind when you're going, okay, well, maybe certain developments have similar sounding names or a theme, so to speak. So if you're heading towards this if the GPS isn't working or whatever, you still have kind of an idea of where you're going, as opposed to one single address there with multiple units. It just becomes very cumbersome in that response. So I'd suggest, I don't know if it would be helpful that it sounds like you already have a plan for naming each of the streets in the project.
Yeah, so post-entitlement, there's two components. There's a phasing application that will go along on how the project's going to be phased and the circulation with that. And then second, there's going to be a street, kind of a street naming configuration with that. And we'll just take a look at this and coordinate with fire and police on what makes sense in terms of, you know, how those alleys are addressed and named.
Maybe if I could just get a comment from police and fire, would you find it helpful to have each of the streets named in the project? I see a head nod from.
Yeah, excuse me, Commissioner Vrooman, that's correct. And that's something that we've worked with planning before when we get to these. And if you go to the newer developments, you're going to see a lot more signage than you used to see in the past.
Right.
As a firefighter that had dispatch calling on the radio, the ladies said, "You keep driving by your house." It's pretty close to my heart. I remember that call really well. So I make sure everything really gets numbered well.
Okay, sounds like it. And I saw a head nod from Lieutenant Hollenweiger over there. So, okay, as long as there's a plan, you know, to do that, makes me feel comfortable thinking ahead. Thank you.
Mr. Chair? What is the water and sewer? Are there any water or sewer issues here? And is it Eastern Mountain that's going to be the provider for this project?
Yeah, Eastern Municipal Water District is the provider. The project is conditioned to go through an annexation process. The applicant has already been threading with the district, and we've spoken with them individually. They are able to, upon annexation, serve the project.
But there must be an annexation first.
Yeah, that is a requirement. They'll be going through LAFCO once they've completed their application process with the district. And so far, so good. The project to the south, that went through the same exercise, through an annexation process, and it did work out. It is a significant endeavor to go through that process. A lot of engineering calcs to make sure that there's a deliverable, but everything that we've talked about with the district tells us that it will go through.
And the water pressure will be okay for 243 residents?
Yeah, there's water pressure that the water district can deliver. There's also, the developer has to put in their own private pumps to make sure that you can get the second and third floors, you know, with adequate pressure. Right now, our building inspectors are going up and down Jefferson, double checking the apartments that are about to get occupancy. And there are on-site solutions that developers can have to make sure that you can take a shower on the third floor. So it is an important point. Often the water districts are not the issue. They can provide the minimum pressure to these homes, but it is the developer and how they design it that can provide the expected water pressure that a resident would want to have.
Mr. Wycheck, did you have another?
Yeah, just a question. On level of service, if it's an F, if I understand correctly, does that mean the minimum average wait time is 80 seconds during peak hours? Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there anything beyond that, like a G, H? So it's 80 seconds or more. So potentially it could be a 4-minute wait, but it would still be an F.
Right, it's just
Okay.
works F.
Okay.
Good. All right, thank you, commissioners. At this time, we'll take testimony from the applicant. Please state your name for the record. Typically, each applicant and appellant will be limited to a 15-minute presentation and a 10-minute rebuttal if requested, and we'll allow an applicant rebuttal of 10 minutes if requested. Welcome.
All right. Thank you, Chair Harlan. My name is Adam Smith. I'm with Sansera Management. We're the applicant on this project, and we're honored to have this project in front of you for consideration. I'd like to thank staff for their presentation and for their thorough analysis. All of those pages you mentioned, we have the technical experts here who created those, and they had to read them all. So we've worked very closely with staff, especially with Chris and Jarrett. We started off with what we thought was a very good project, and working with them, I think we've made it even better. To address a couple of the questions that have come up, in regards to the marketing and the price point for this is an entry-level home, and this is the type of home that, I have a daughter who's a senior in high school. She's going to go off to college, and I want her to be able to buy a house someday. And this kind of hits that missing middle. So if you are in an apartment, you have a kid, and this hits that price point for you to move into for your first home. The 3-story homes they're accessible from the ground floor. Each one is its own individual unit, and the living occurs mostly on the 2nd floor, and the bedrooms, which you're not visiting as often, are upstairs on the 3rd floor. The units surrounding the project are all 2 stories. So it's a mix of both to provide a variety of price points for that, what I call the missing middle buyer. Not an affordable buyer, not a high-end buyer. This is the missing middle that really needs a home. So gets them into the housing market. In terms of traffic, I'm not a traffic expert. I think a lot of the questions I felt were answered very well, so I appreciate staff's responses. We also have our traffic expert here today. But aside from that, I think the presentation was a good one by staff. I concur with the presentation. We concur with the conditions, and would ask for your approval. And I'm here if you have any questions. Our team is here if you have any questions. And if there are any speakers, I just ask that you invite me back up for 10 minutes. So if you have any questions, I'm here.
Fantastic. We'll do. Mr. Fisher?
Are you at the liberty to discuss what the missing middle price point is?
I can tell you that the market will set the price when it comes to market, so things can change, but we project that these will start in the high 400s and going up into the 500,000s and maybe even the low 600s is kind of where we believe this will be.
So the missing middle market is 400 to 500,000?
That's what I call it. It's not quite a defined legal term, but yes, that's what I would call it.
Thank you.
Mr. Vrooman, any questions?
No questions. I like the project and totally understand what the missing middle. So I like that term because it's exactly my point of, people that are long-term renters want to buy something, especially in Murrieta, property values are high, just for a single family home, even an older one, and to have something new at this whatever price point that you market it at, it does fill a void in the community. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wycheck?
I concur. I like the project. I think it's a beautiful project, and it does fit a need. I got kids in that category as well, so I get it. I don't like the impact on traffic, but when we look at level F and it's 80 seconds average wait, but level F could be 5-minute level wait too. So when I see the traffic report that says, well, don't worry, it's level F now, but after we build a project, it's still level F. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean it's 80 seconds or is it going to be 4 minutes? There's no GHIJ. So that's a bit concerning, especially with the high school right there, just because you got all sorts of traffic with high school kids and all that stuff. But I like the project.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I understand the concern. I don't know what more we can do about traffic. We are actually at the minimum density and intensity of use that this site actually allows under the zoning. So to that effect, it's as minimal as it could be. But I do believe that our experts have analyzed this thoroughly and the staff's reviewed it. So I'm not an expert, I'm relying on them. So thank you.
Well, Mr. Smith, appreciate the transparency around the middle market for sure. And my comments are around the postal zone there, as if unfortunately you've had your mail either stolen or for some reason not delivered. Our post offices tend to be very busy around here, and it's quite laborious to get there. So just a thought for the folks that are there.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, good? Okay, so next we'll move on to public testimony. At 7:01, public testimony is opened. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comments starting with proponents, opponents, then those neutral in that order, please?
We have one in favor, Dan Felkins.
Welcome, sir.
I'm Dan Felkins. I've lived in that area right down the street from the project for over 20 years. I've been a citizen of Murrieta for 27 years. My neighbors and I are very much in favor of this project, and I've spoken to a bunch of them, most of them. One of the things that it's going to do is it's really going to, especially with that signalized intersection, it's going to really put a halt to the street racing that goes on out there. Huge public safety issue. We hear them going all night long. That's going to be a big deal. We have petitioned the city for years for smart development, conducive to the area, that brings roads, infrastructure, housing, growth, particularly when it's done through a reputable developer. This project does all of that. We are very thankful to have had the project, very thankful for city staff for putting together a phenomenal project, and we are very much in support of it. And when it comes to renaming street names, for goodness sake, let's rename Arendt Lane. Nobody knows how to spell that street name. So we are in favor. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate you, sir, and the safety call-outs as well. All right, with that, no other public comments?
Seeing none.
Okay, so we'll close public testimony at 7:03. Public testimony is closed. Commissioners?
I believe the applicant wanted an opportunity after public comment. He may not still, but I just want to make sure.
You good? Thank you, Paul. Commissioners, thoughts? It's good to move forward.
Again, I like the project. I think we're going to have a parking lot over there off of Clinton Keith, but I like the project.
Looks very well thought out, and between everything we've heard and the pages and the specifics, certainly the due diligence has been put forth for a fantastic project. I think it's time to call for a motion. Do you agree? Going to have a motion in a second?
I can read the recommendation for you, the commission, if it so pleases you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Recommendation is to consider and approve the notice of exemption for project consistent with the community plan or zoning pursuant to the guidelines of implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act, Section 15183, Title 14, Division 6, Chapter 3 of the California Code of Regulations, and Public Resources Code, Section 21083.3, and adopting a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Murrieta approving development plan permit number 2023-00024 and tentative track map number 2023-00014 for the construction of 243 townhome units in a subdivision of 17.26 acres on 11 parcels and the associated off-site improvements located northeast of the intersection of Clinton Keith Road and Whitewood Road.
And I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as stated by Mr. Steele.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So, Madam Secretary, we can do a roll call vote, or we can do it here online.
I'll do the roll call. Chair Harlan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vrooman.
Aye.
Commissioner Wojcik.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher. Motion carries unanimously, 4-0.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, folks, let's take a 5-minute recess, and we'll come back at 7:10.
And then are you going to read your conflict statement at the beginning?
All right, should we move on to the next public hearing?
No problem. I want to rush it.
All right, we're back online at 7:12. All right, coming up is the Shops at the Triangle, specific plan amendment 2023-00003, development plan 2022-2705, tentative map 38622, TTAM/2022/2706, and development agreement DA/2024/00004. Are there any members of the Planning Commission that wish to abstain or recuse themselves from this item?
I need to recuse myself from this item. I have a financial relationship with the applicant, and so I will be leaving this evening.
Appreciate the transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wojcik, for coming this evening for the first two items.
Absolutely. Okay, we have the three amigos. So staff, may we have a staff report, please?
Yes, good evening, Chairman Harlan and Commissioners. Dennis Watts, Senior Planner with the Development Services Department. So the project before you tonight is called the Shops at the Triangle. It's a 64-acre project development located between Interstate 15 and 215 and south of Murrieta Hot Springs Road. Consists of a specific plan amendment representing the second amendment to the Triangle specific plan. There's a development plan for the construction of an approximate 279,500 square foot regional shopping center on a portion of the specific plan area, and also a tentative tract map to subdivide the property into 23 parcels. The fourth application is a development agreement. However, staff and the applicant are still working on various aspects of the agreement, and staff will be recommending a continuance for this development agreement. The development plan represents the first development on the site and is a key milestone in implementing the specific plan. Because there is a specific plan amendment, you, the Commission, will be providing a recommendation to the City Council. So here this slide is on the project zoning. So the project site is has a specific plan designation. Within that, there's a subzone of commercial. To the north, you have regional commercial, community commercial, and office research park. To the west, beyond the 15 freeway, you have community commercial, and to the south, you have innovation zoning. And then across the 215 freeway to the east, you have regional commercial zoning. A little bit of background on the specific plan. So specific plan 276 was originally called Murrieta Springs Mall and was originally approved by the county in 1990. And it was for a 1.76 million square foot indoor retail center. An environmental impact report was prepared and adopted, which identified impacts and mitigation measures to reduce those impacts. In 2013, the city processed and approved the first amendment to the specific plan and changed the name to the Triangle. The allowed square footage remained the same, but the concept was to shift to an outdoor mall concept. The amendment incorporated design standards, reduced the number of planning areas from 6 to 4, increased height limits for certain uses in planning areas between 200 and 280 feet, and it reduced the amount of retail space and increased the amount of office space. As part of that, there was an updated environmental impact report, or a subsequent EIR, and that was performed and adopted by the City Council along with the specific plan amendment. The environmental impact report, as mentioned earlier, was originally adopted in 1990, and then the subsequent environmental impact report was performed and adopted in 2013. It essentially updated the original EIR, and ultimately there were two categories within the EIR where there were significant impacts that could not be mitigated. They were traffic and circulation and air quality. The traffic and circulation impacts were generally related to direct and cumulative traffic impacts, and the air quality impacts were related to consistency with the region's air quality management plan, construction, and cumulative impacts. It should be noted that the traffic-related impacts were found to be significant and unavoidable for one or more of the following reasons. One was the mitigation was infeasible. Two, the mitigation involves a fair share payment that would not guarantee the implementation of the improvement by the time the project came online. And three, the intersection is under the jurisdiction of another agency. Therefore, statement of overriding considerations was adopted by the City Council. A statement of overriding considerations states that the decision-making body has balanced the benefits of the proposed project against its unavoidable significant environmental effects, and has determined that those benefits of the project outweigh the adverse effects, and therefore the adverse effects are considered to be acceptable. So moving on to the next part. So this is the specific plan amendment section, the next few slides. So essentially they could be broken into three categories. One is you have modifications to uses, which are in table 2-1. There's modifications to development standards. Those development standards would be items such as parking requirements, landscape requirements, different setbacks, setback tables, and so on. And then there's administrative matters, which are items like processing, application submittal requirements, timeframes for approvals. So for the first part is the changes to the land use table, which is table 2-1. In your Planning Commission packet, you have the red line specific plan that shows where the changes are. Highlighting a couple for you are, there are some, one of the uses is restaurants with drive-through. So while restaurants was previously allowed, this one is asking to have it as a drive-through use, which was not allowed before. So that's being added in as a request, as a permitted use. Also, hospitals as a conditional use permit. Auto rentals as an office only, a golf driving range as a minor conditional use permit, and extended care facility as a minor conditional use permit. The other part is some modified authority. In this kind of category, the uses were essentially already in the use table, but we're kind of changing the authority from one kind of category or grouping to another. So for this first one is a warehouse retail. Originally it was a conditional use permit. Now it's being proposed as a permitted use, but then it's identified as a building that's going to be 70,000 square feet or less. Also, there's another as outdoor recreation commercial that was originally proposed as a conditional use permit. Now it's being shifted to a minor conditional use permit. Veterinary clinic or kennels, that one was originally required to be part of a retail store, like a pet store, for example, PetSmart. So here the request is to allow it to be isolated as a individual business or use, not being part of a retail store. And then that would be proposed as a minor conditional use permit. So the next part is development standards. So highlighting a couple of the bigger changes to the development standards. One of them is there's a request to reduce the 60-foot landscape setback along Murrieta Hot Springs Road. This would be changing to either 15 or 25, and this is consistent with other setbacks within the other zones throughout the city. Another change is building setbacks, allowing building setbacks within a specific plan. They're currently measured in the specific plan from the landscape setback. So here, as part of this change, we're going to a more conventional method, and that is just making setbacks from property line. So as part of that, it's a domino effect where it does make all the other development standards in the tables in the specific plan also have to change because of that. Another one of the changes is to modify various landscape setbacks and widths within the specific plan area. Also reduce some landscape width between the main drive aisle and some of the buildings. And so these are pretty much some of the changes overall, the general idea of what's changes as far as in the development standards. So moving on to administrative matters. Some of the changes there to highlight is there's a request to add mobile food truck standards under the temporary use permit provisions. We've also added situations or items that fall within the minor exception allowance. And we've also increased the percentage threshold from deviations to setback standards from 10% to 25%. And another change to highlight is changing the expiration of a development plan. It went from 2 years to 4 years. So just to note, many of the changes are made to allow the flexibility in implementing the specific plan. Also being able to implement that without having to process another specific plan amendment. We'd like to point out that while these changes, many of these changes are requesting to reduce the landscape standards and building setback standards, they, in a sense, still, for the most part, meet and exceed city standards that are used in a normal commercial or regional commercial zoning. Now shifting to the development plan and tentative map. Project proposes to construct a 279,500 square foot retail center on the northern 36.5 acres of the specific plan area. The southern portion does not have any buildings proposed at this point and would be left for a future development. So the following exhibits will focus on the northern portion only. Slide up here shows a conceptual landscape plan that shows all the buildings. You can see buildings along Murrieta Hot Springs Road. You have a couple drive aisles, and then you have some buildings at the bottom of the screen that are kind of all in line. So out of that, it's a 279,500 square foot shopping center. About 200,000 square feet is anticipated to be retail uses. There's about 76,000 square feet that are anticipated to be restaurant uses. And then the development consists of about 28 buildings, 10 of them front along Murrieta Hot Springs Road. The building that is on the far right-hand side or east side is a pad building that has the drive-through, which is dependent on the specific plan amendment. You have about 11,000 square feet of outdoor dining area. And that's kind of an overall synopsis of the site plan for the buildings. So there's two main entries. They have landscaping bordering both sides of the entry drive and on each side of the walkways connecting from Murrieta Hot Springs Road to the interior of the site. And I'll see if I can kind of show you that part. Oh, you can't see that. So I don't know if you can see the, oops. So I don't know if you can see the mouse, but along here is a walkway, and then it's flanked with landscaping on both sides. You have that same thing on this side of the drive aisle, and then on the easterly, you have something very similar. So with that, you have landscaping both sides of the walkway. Project also includes enhanced paving at the entries and at the roundabouts and along key areas of the building frontages. These elements create a statement upon entering the project site. There's wide walking areas in front of the buildings and in many locations provide pedestrian amenities to create a pedestrian environment. The specific plan requires 2 plazas or wide pedestrian-oriented areas that provide seating and shade coverage, of which 3 are provided for the project. 2 are located on both sides of the westerly roundabout, and the other is located on the interior side of the easterly roundabout. You have landscaping along Murrieta Hot Springs Road from 15 to 25 feet wide and a minimum of 10 feet, and in some cases up to 20 feet along the freeway frontages. For parking, you have about 1,440 parking spaces required. Project is providing almost 1,700 parking spaces, and all the parking meets city requirements. So for this slide, it's showing the access. All the access is essentially on Murrieta Hot Springs Road. You have 2 main entry drives. The westerly entry will be across from Sparkman Drive, or what is considered future Monroe, and will be a full access entry with the installation of traffic signals. And also the north side of Sparkman, north of Murrieta Hot Springs Road, will need to be realigned to accommodate the traffic coming from the south. Additionally, there'll be a deceleration lane, which will be provided at this entry. The easterly entry, which will be across from Hancock Avenue, and will be a full access entry with the installation and modification of traffic signals and another deceleration lane. And then the middle entry will be limited to a right in and right out, and will also include a deceleration lane. Moving on to kind of building architecture and elevations. The project building architectural theme is considered a modern farmhouse, which utilizes board and batten, standing seam metal wood, standing seam metal, wood panels, stone veneer, board form concrete, various textures of masonry block with metal awnings, various colors. So the next 2 slides show kind of preview of what the buildings look like. This is building 2, which is located on Murrieta Hot Springs Road over on the westerly side of the project site. This next slide here is building D, and as you can see in the bottom middle, it's essentially on the located past a roundabout on the easterly drive. So for the project, staff conducted an environmental analysis. The California Environmental Quality Act allows cities to rely upon or tear off of a previous environmental impact report when considering subsequent projects. So an environmental consistency analysis was prepared and determined that an addendum is applicable in accordance with CEQA guidelines. These guidelines state that you can rely on a previous environmental impact report when there's no substantial changes to the project that require major revisions to the previous environmental document due to new significant environmental effects. Also, there's no substantial changes with respect to the circumstances under which the project is considered that involve any new significant environmental effects. And then third, there's no new information that shows that the project will have more significant effects not previously discussed. And also, no new mitigation measures are necessary. So the evaluation conducted or concluded that the project is consistent with the 2013 supplemental subsequent EIR, and then the proposed development plan, tentative track map, and specific plan amendment falls within and is consistent with the previous environmental document. It should be noted that the previous environmental document had different phases that it analyzed. So it analyzed traffic at a phase 1A, which had a certain amount of square footage, phase 1B, which had more, and also had phase 2 and phase 3. So when looking at this project today, the analysis was that it's equivalent with what was analyzed back in 2013 as a phase 1 A, B, and C. So still stays under phase 1. So with that, there's no new mitigation measures. So the mitigation monitoring and reporting program that was originally adopted is still applicable. It should be noted that because there is a specific plan amendment, city is required to conduct tribal consultation. That tribal consultation is still ongoing as we speak. So as I mentioned earlier about the traffic, this slide shows the 2013 subsequent EIR, and what's highlighted is the anticipated trip generation for what is considered phase 1C. So phase 1C, you could see on the left-hand side, it says commercial retail, and it has 339,714. So that's square footage. So that's assuming about 339,714 square feet of commercial retail, 48,000 square feet of office. You add it all up, it's about a little over 500,000 square feet of commercial. With that, at the bottom of the highlights, you can see on the far bottom right, it says daily trips, and that's assuming about 22,541 daily trips. And that was the 2013 subsequent EIR. So with that, this table shows on the top, on the row, you have 2013 subsequent EIR, phase 1. You see on the far right-hand side, it's the same 22,541 trips. With the proposed project today, there's an anticipated 19,248 total daily trips. You could also see in the AM and PM peak hours that those numbers are lower than what was anticipated back then. It should be noted that this project does have a different mix of retail and restaurant and uses from what was analyzed before. But I think the end result is you still have less trips than what was analyzed back at that point. There was also a focused traffic analysis prepared in 2023, and it focused on traffic along Murrieta Hot Springs Road between the two freeways. That study concluded that with the recommended improvements, the intersections along Murrieta Hot Springs Road from I-15 to I-215 would operate an acceptable level of service, with the exception of the middle project driveway, which is an unsignalized access drive. So with that, the next slide will talk about what are some of the project improvements. These are some of the items that I spoke about earlier, and I'll just kind of re-highlight again. With that, they're going to be installing a signal at Murrieta Hot Springs Road at Sparkman Drive. They'll be realigning and widening the north side of Sparkman Drive, modifying a signal at Murrieta Hot Springs Road at Hancock, installing deceleration lanes, and then also as part of the project, they'll be paying a development impact fee, a TUMF fee, and then there's also a fair share fee. Those are all required prior to building permit issuance. And then there's also a mitigation measure from the mitigation monitoring reporting program, item number 10-1, and that requires them to make improvements at Hancock Avenue and Parkcrest Avenue. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission first continue the development agreement to the August 14 Planning Commission meeting, and also to recommend to City Council to consider and approve the addendum to the subsequent EIR, and then also adopt the resolution as stated in the staff report. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Chair, if I might interject a moment.
Please.
I think it would be wise to take the continuance of the development agreement up now individually so that we keep the administrative record for this and eventually the development agreement separate, and this doesn't become a part of the record for the development agreement since it's being continued before we take testimony. So my recommendation is that we take a motion on the continuance of the development public hearing for the development agreement first and then proceed with the rest of the items here tonight.
I appreciate you sharing that. Gentlemen, you agree? Mr. Fisher?
Yeah, I will make the motion.
I'll second.
To what date are we proposing continuance?
It would be continuous to the next meeting of the Planning Commission, August 14th.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, could I get a vote?
Chair Harlan,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruman.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously, 3-0.
Thank you. And then we continue with your questions and any public testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Watts, appreciate the specifics and the details. 34 years this project's been going along, according to my math. I know this was talked about at the State of the City. We had the workshop recently, over 1,260 pages of documentation. Gentlemen, any questions for staff? Mr. Fisher?
Are we sure that there's enough water and sewage for that particular project? I know that there should be a pond, or what do they call that? I'm sorry, I don't, a retention pond. There should be a retention pond. Is that all come together? And who is going to be the provider for the water and sewer?
So Eastern Municipal Water District is the water purveyor for this. We have communicated and transmitted project plans to them. They are very aware of this project. So they have not shared anything stating otherwise that they can't provide sewer or water for this site.
And the mobile food trucks, I'm kind of, how is that going to, or what are the plans there for mobile food trucks? When you've got state-of-the-art buildings and state-of-the-art residents in those buildings, why would you bring upon a food truck?
You know, it is a little new standard for the city. So this is a unique site. We do have provisions in, and I think the developer could probably speak a little more to what their plan is and what they want to achieve out of that. I know sometimes it could seem a little in conflict with your brick and mortar situation, but I think they could probably speak a little bit to that.
And we've adopted the traffic and air quality in the EIR and that's from 2014?
2013, yes.
2013, and we are using that now, and that is allowable?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have. Dennis, thank you very much. You always do a great job. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Vrooman?
Yes, again, great job, Dennis. Several different components here going back, a lot of history. 34 years, even before the city incorporated, and you got the tentative track map, you got development plan. Of course, we've moved the development agreement over, but a lot of moving parts to this whole project and the specific plan and everything. You did a great job explaining that, so appreciate that. One comment here, and we did have a extensive workshop on this before, which is very helpful, which kind of limits some of my questions because we got a lot of them asked and answered at the last meeting. One concept I really like is the ring road, and I'm just going to, when you go to the city to the south and you go into the mall there, and they have a ring road too, but because of the traffic in there, they had to since put signals in there, and so I really like the roundabouts because it just moves cars along and it's just easier to navigate. So I appreciate the thinking, the forward thinking to incorporate that in the project. Along that route there, the ring road in this project, even though there's seemingly two phases to this, is the ring road going to be built out during the first phase? Or is it going to stop at the edge, or is it going to be built out in its entirety all the way through?
It would stop as shown on the plan, so it stops past those first main buildings, and then future phase, it would continue around to connect.
Okay. And then also I brought this up in the workshop and probably like to hear from PD, and I'm just going to go back in history and in time here, is that the size of the city, the police department has some office fronts, no real substations, but because the police department located right next door is on the west side, we have, to my knowledge, at least two basically substations, office sites that officers, for better response, they can go there, write reports and things like that. In previous developments or planned development of this site, that was always part of a condition of approval that we had that in there. In this, I did not see that even after the workshop, it got added in, of having the police department having an opportunity to have an office work site, if you will. And so I'd like to see from the police department, I know I promoted you in the last hearing to Lieutenant Ryan Hollenweiger, but I'm wondering if you could come up and maybe give Sergeant Ryan Hollenweiger, if you could kind of come up and give maybe the police department's perspective, if you feel that that would be an advantageous strategic advantage to having a work site there on this site.
Yeah, so my name is Ryan Hollenweger. I'm a sergeant with the police department in the administrative bureau. In our history of the growth of the city and the amount of call volumes we're now getting with the population growth, I don't want to call it a substation, but an office front where we're not required to man it as of, taking reports there, but just the high visibility, giving a place for officers to write reports. In the slower times, in the evening times, if they have access to it, there's a police car parked in the middle of a retail center that may be closed. We'll give high visibility of a police car there as they write reports. We'll kind of reduce crime per se with the visibility of it. But this would be something that we would be receptive of, and our officers, because of the size of the city land-wise, it's fairly large for us to get around, for our PD being on this side of the town. So right now we have two office fronts, one at Station 4 across from Loma Linda, the fire station up Baxter, and then also the now Murrieta Hot Springs Resort on the east end. This would give us another spot to then spread our forces, reduce our response times, and things of that nature.
Would it be helpful maybe to have a couple, police-only parking stalls in front of this office substation, if you want to call it?
Yes, because we want to also have our cars close to where we can also not only have sight of them, but also if we get a call, we can run out to them. But also, that would also allow the public to see that the police cars there were associated, we're close by. And that would definitely be something that we would like to have designated stall for, that directly in front of that office front.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll probably ask the applicant and see what their thoughts are about that as well, too, when we get to that point. But great project and great job presenting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vrooman. Couple questions. So circling back to that workshop that Mr. Vrooman alluded to, which was so helpful, Scott Agajanian mentioned, and we kind of talked about what does success look like? How do we define that? And he cited three things: revenue, tourism, and excitement. So kind of thinking about that since the last workshop, right? It's what could potentially be a hurdle or an obstacle or an opportunity relative to those goals that would take it not have that happen, correct? Because I think even the applicant aligned that those would be three pretty good deliverables for us all to do well. So the first one I came up with was safety. And I think Mr. Vrooman addressed that, right? Thinking of high-end retail, close to the freeway, on and off, smash and grabs that we see out there in other cities. It sounds like there's some plans in place to have a presence, and police has looked at this and is thinking about it. So it looks like we're proactive in that area, correct?
There's that was just discussed, and then there is a mitigation measure that does require the developer to coordinate with the police department on other potential safety measures. It talks about whether it's private security, plain clothes, cameras, whatever it might be, they can be in communication with the police department and work on appropriate safety measures.
Got it, thank you. If you could pull up that project improvement slide relative to traffic again. So where I'm kind of going with this question, right, is, we know that City Council looks at acknowledging traffic impacts with the project, but deeming them acceptable due to the positive benefits of the project. And traffic's certainly a hot button within the city. So all that said, it's like, what are we doing? How are we being proactive? And I think this slide talks to that. So for those here in the room, maybe those that are online, internet watching, perhaps there's somebody from the media, Murrieta Patch that's going to summarize this because it is a big project and get it out to the folks. For those folks listening in that hopefully get a chance to see this, isn't there also some things that we can talk to that we are doing as a city? Isn't there a travel demand management plan that talks, maybe if someone can talk or briefly summarize some of the additional things we're doing? Aren't we doing things around pedestrians, bus routes, transit, cycling? Can someone elaborate further on what we are doing proactively with this?
Yeah, I could speak to a little bit of that. So yes, there is a travel demand management plan or a trip reduction plan. That's part of this package. Obviously, the goal is to reduce the number of trips. So there is also a bus turnout that is going to be provided along Murrieta Hot Springs Road. The trip reduction plan talks about providing certain number of bike racks and bike lockers for employees on the project. Also about carpool or van pool spaces, and then not really related to the trip reduction, but with the new building code requirements, there's quite a bit of electric vehicle charging stations that will be provided at the project site as well. But those are some of the other for the trip reduction plan is, primarily you have a lot of a walking area from the bus stop into the project site, very nice landscape walking areas. You do have a bus stop, and then they also have some other discussion about bike lockers and so on.
Outstanding. Anything else you want to add to that?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. One last thing, and then we'll kick over to the applicant. Council talked about the positive benefits the project will bring to the city. And I think we all see that. We discuss it at the workshop. But again, for those that perhaps missed the workshop, those that are watching online, maybe those that are summarizing this meeting and putting it out there on print, Scott mentioned leakage. Do we have any idea or how that's measured, the impact this will have to the city, the impact for the residents, and anything along those lines that you could perhaps talk to for someone who might be listening in?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we do have James Wirtz with the Economic Development Department that's here. Before he starts getting going on it, though, I think I do want to kind of just point out here, from a planning standpoint of what we're bringing forward to you. Planning we're kind of regulated of. We're looking at, does it meet city zoning? Does it meet general plan goals? Does it meet setbacks and landscaping? We can't really regulate who the specific tenants are or specific retail type of groupings or categories. But just want to kind of point that out, and then I'll hand it over to James Wirtz.
Understood. Appreciate that. Welcome, Mr. Wirtz.
Thank you, Chairman Harlan. And Vice Chair Murrieta, and of course, Commissioner. So to speak a little bit about, I'm sorry, again, I'm James Wirtz, Economic Development Manager for the city, standing in for Scott Agajanian, our director, who's on a well-deserved vacation. So to speak a little bit to leakage, for those that don't know, of course, basically it just amounts to sales tax that's leaving our jurisdiction. So, if you're a citizen of Murrieta, of course, and you're headed down south to our neighboring cities and you're spending your tax dollars there, naturally they're capturing those tax dollars. So there is a formula that, I guess that is used out in the industry. The city, we subscribe to a lot of different sources of information, but it's a very simple formula. So basically you kind of define an area. Let's say in this case, it would be the city of Murrieta, 92562, 92563, those two area codes, right? And so you define that area and then you define the total demand for a product. Let's say that's shoes, you know, maybe athletic shoes or whatever. And let's say that's $1 million, okay? And then you determine, basically you're determining that the city of Murrieta, the residents of Murrieta would buy, say, $1 million worth of shoes per year. So then again, through the credit cards, your banks, you know, they all capture this information. Let's say $500,000 is spent in the city on shoes, then we know that we're only capturing about 50%, you know, or 50 cents, or 50% basically of that market. So again, leakage analysis, anything, so 1 would be you're capturing every dollar, any ratio below 1, so if it was 0.75, that means you're capturing about 75% of the shoe market in your city. Your residents are spending 75% of their dollars on shoes in your city. So anything, again, below 1 is considered leakage. Anything above 1, sometimes we punch above our weight. Let's say it's women's shoes, right? For example, we might be at a 1.25, so maybe Murrieta is, or Temecula or another city, residents from other cities are coming to our city to purchase those shoes. Maybe we have a spectacular women's shoe store or whatever that store is. So that's kind of how you define leakage. Again, we have a few areas, as Dennis mentioned. Of course, we can't speak to, you know, what's on the project, but again, we anticipate that this will, in those areas, we anticipate that, you know, that will right size some of that leakage that's coming out of the city. So,
Question for you on that, just if I may. I'd never really, heard that term before. I did, but
sure.
But that has to do with brick and mortar only, or especially with online sales and things like that. Is that tracked? Is that a way to kind of incorporate that leakage concept, or you can't really get that information because it's only based on local?
It's typically captured on credit card data and debit card data. So yes, it can be, you know, that it can be tracked. So if you're buying it off Amazon, right, sure, that basically your bank has tracked that you've bought shoes on Amazon or Zappos or whatever that e-commerce site is. So yes, that is still tracked. It can go anything that's outside of your zip code that's being spent. So if that's again on Amazon, then absolutely.
So do you factor that in your, hey, 1 is you're capturing everything, and then anything below that, that number, that formula is based upon?
That's basically the total demand in the area. Okay. So again, yes, say, you know, again, let's say in 2024, the total demand was $1 million. And at the end of 2024, the credit card companies determined that only $500,000 was spent in the area by our residents on those. Then we know we're at a 50% leakage rate ratio. So,
got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have familiarity with syndicated data, Nielsen, IRI, Numerator. So sure. I think what you're sharing is very similar to that. So I appreciate that. So
right, absolutely.
For John or Jane resident that's out there trying to make ends meet, they're commuting, they're going down to San Diego, they're going to Orange County, you know, traffic here, traffic there, and everything. With this project going through, is it fair to say that, yeah, you might get hung up a little bit here or there at a light, but the impact to the city as far as, I envision property taxes and medical are probably our 2 major pillars.
Sure.
This adding to the retail base will help fuel and fund police, fire, other services to overall enhance the overall quality for that Murrieta resident that's out there fighting 15 and 91 traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would, you know, I would echo Director Agajanian's comments from the workshop, and that is, you know, the benefits from it. So, you know, the benefits are, you know, revenue. Of course, that's going to keep our police and fire healthy. That's going to help us with CIP projects in the city, so on and so forth. You know, tourism, again, it's going to be, this is a destination type, you know, place. So you're going to draw from, you know, the Hemet, the Lake Elsinore, you know, the surrounding Menifee, the surrounding areas, and they're going to come to this area. So that's a good thing because we're going to bring in tax dollars from outside. Again, excitement. It's an experiential use. People are traveling for, unique food, unique entertainment options. And, again, I know the developer, is going to, that's what they'll provide. That's what they're going to strive to provide. So, I think it'll all be great. I'd add one thing, obviously employment. Naturally there's going to be a lot of retail jobs, but there's going to be some, even lower level management retail jobs there and maybe mid-management jobs. So there's going to be some employment there. I think, yes, to your point, the benefits of it will far outweigh the impacts of it. So, yes.
Gentlemen, anything? Mr. Wertz, fantastic summary. I think that I hope that's publicized out to all our residents, because I think that that's definitely something that everyone needs to know about. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
No questions for staff? We have a presentation from the applicant. Welcome again. If you'd share your name with us for the record, it'd be appreciated.
Of course. Saul Jaffe on behalf of the applicant Trace Estrellas and Dominigoni Barton Properties. Nice to see everyone again, and I appreciate the time. I want to thank staff for going through a lot of the technical details, which means that I don't have to do them. I really want to prioritize first the comments from the commission, address those, and then we can go through our presentation. So first, the first two questions were from Commissioner Fisher, which were about the water and the sewer. So we spent the better part of 3 years negotiating with EMWD. EMWD has a sewer master plan and a water master plan for the region, and we fit into that. So we went through very detailed demand management process with them, where we went through both current and future development. And then a critical part of it is that we are a very important part of their sewer master plan. There's a lift station right now in Monroe, which will be abandoned. There'll be a gravity feed sewer line that will come through our project. It follows the western alignment of the road and then crosses the 15. So it actually crosses Murrieta Hot Springs Road, comes through the site, crosses the 15 freeway, and then connects essentially behind CarMax in Guava. So that's the alignment of the future sewer master plan. So we're kind of the critical element to the future sewer region and abandonment of that lift station. So as part of that, we went through really a pretty extensive, it was about 2 or 3 year process going through the alignment. The alignment had changed at one point. It was in front of CarMax. Sizing, all sorts of capacity issues, timing, cost sharing, we're really in alignment with the MWD. I do want to mention the on-site detention basin, which was a comment that you also made. So the way that we've currently designed the storm drain management is to be serviced with underground detention basins. So one of the areas on our western portion has an underground, they call them dog houses, but basically they're underground water retention basins. So we do percolation tests, we see what the absorption rate is. It's all engineered, so the water is maintained on site, and then there's an overflow if you meet a 100-year storm or whatever the case is, but the water is all treated on site with underground detention basins instead of what you would see as an open storm drain management detention basin. So on the food truck question, I think a better way to think of the food trucks is a complement to, not a primary use. So one of the things that we really wanted to do was to energize the shopping center. So things like farmers markets and it's very difficult to get morning activity at a shopping center. So things like food trucks and the way that we've worked through this is we worked with staff. We did a very extensive temporary use permit system. So it's the same temporary use permit system that works for things like Christmas tree sales or pumpkin sales. It's a food truck, it's a limited use. And so for example, when you have a parcel where we're gonna build a building and it's not built yet, that could be, for example, a location where we could put a food truck. There are restrictions. You have to be within so much distance from a bathroom. There's a whole process that you have to work through. But I think the better way to think of a food truck is not as a primary use, but as an add-on, as a complement, as something to energize and supplement and create a higher degree of synergy and activity. and then things like farmers markets, and that would be a more regular use of a food truck. So that's kind of the design that we've been thinking about.
Food truck would be an entertainment.
It would be
basis.
a supplement, correct. It would be an added benefit. And they rotate different types of food trucks. It would be, so maybe one day a week, but different types every month. It would change. That it would be more of a programmed temporary use. You talked about the police department, and I want to get to that. So when we first came through this, we actually made some inquiries, and we mentioned to you that we had inquired about some kind of police presence. And that didn't really get any momentum. But after the meeting, when you had raised the question, we've had a couple of more substantive conversations with staff and with the assistant city manager about police department. What are the needs? What could be satisfied? We like the idea. I mean, we share the same kind of concerns of eliminating crime before it happens. So one of the questions that we're working through, and we are in a dialogue with staff right now, is what's the size? I've heard it might be 1,500, 1,600 feet, 4 desks, 5 desks. That's kind of the discussion that we're working on. There is one space on site that we were going to use as a management office, which is a possibility. There's also a possibility of adding other spaces or another space. And the reason why I say that, and our preference is not to be conditioned on it, but just to work it out. And the reason why is because we don't know where it's going to go, and we don't know the exact size. And one of the issues with the transportation demand management plan is you have to have stored area for bikes. So we had planned for our management office to be 1,600 square feet with a bike storage in the rear so that we would satisfy the transportation demand management plan. If that turns out that that's going to be the police station or the police location, then we want to make sure that we have the bike storage somewhere else. So it's kind of a fluid type of resolution, but we're totally in support of it. And we were the proponent for it to begin with, so we appreciate you advocating for it and sort of encouraging. And we think it's a good idea. We think it's good for the center. We think it's good for the police station, and we want to have the cars parked in front. You know, we had negotiated a lot of our leases to do parking counts that excluded things like police parking. They're in actually our leases because we had anticipated that we might be able to do that one day. So we're totally in support of that.
So, can I ask you, on the site there somewhere, is there your preference? Would it be something that would fit during this initial phase, would make sense here as opposed to a latter phase down and be more visible? So it would make sense in this first portion of the development. And honestly, I don't want to get caught in the weeds or anything like that, how big, how small. I figure that's something that you guys can work out and things like that. But I do think some type of a presence there, and where you put it, if you attach it to whatever you do, I don't want to have it get lost. It's my
going
point.
right next to the jewelry store.
Okay, so you've already kind of...
I'm joking.
Yeah. Okay, so you have a jewelry store. Okay.
We don't, but that's the logical place to put it.
You just revealed something. No. No, so I just don't want it to get lost and then kick down the road and go, we never fit it in, and then not there. That's my point for maybe, just having some type of mention in it, and some condition, and you work out the details with the police department. I just don't, depending on when you get, just my preference, just where you build it, where you put it, that's something that, you figure out down the road. So, but I appreciate you, because I know we talked, and that's something that you feel is an asset.
We do.
Value to your development.
We do, and we support that. So with that, let me, Dennis, do you have our slide? How do you want it? This one? This one? Okay, so we want to talk just a little bit about the fun stuff. We did the technical stuff. Now we need to talk about kind of what the look and feel is, what we're trying to achieve, why we're trying to achieve it. So, a lot of people that are local understand Murrieta. We feel that Murrieta is kind of a hidden gem, that it's going to come now with a greater sense of presence. This will be a regional draw. It will create service for both people in Murrieta, but also the surrounding areas. So we think the triangle is long overdue, but now that we're going to do is we're going to create a project that is going to support not only Murrieta, but the region. In terms of the location, it's unique. There really aren't any more undeveloped triangles. And so this offers a unique opportunity because we've got the confluence of two major freeways. I want to talk a little bit about the history. I think we talked last time, but I want to emphasize this. The Dominagoni family has been in the region for 145 years. It's kind of amazing when you start to think about it. So as a stakeholder of the region and the community, we want to make sure that we have a legacy project, a project that basically stands the test of time. So we want to do it right the first time, and we want to do it in a way that basically is a timeless kind of a development. So what are we trying to achieve? We want to appeal to families in the Inland Empire, Orange County, commuters, regional visitors. We want to have an elevated food and retail offering. It has to be well designed with comfortable spaces, create senses of experience, place that people will remember and people will seek out. We're going to do that with curated, unique spaces, high quality goods and foods, and high-level refined architecture. So the vision is to create a community place with best-in-class tenants, create family amenities into a legacy destination that will stand the test of time. We talked a little bit at the study session about placemaking. One of the things that we want to do is create a sense of place that people will come and they'll stay. We want to have more parking than we need. We want to have accessible parking. We want to have amenities that are public spaces. We want to have connectivity. We want to have a place where people will spend the entire day. So we've got to have different types of amenities. We've got to have restaurants. We've got to have shopping. We've got to have public spaces. All of these things work together. One of the ways that we do that is with architecture. We want to create a sense of historic permanence. We want to have an architecture that basically has a sense of timeliness, a timelessness. So we're going to use curated type products in a modern farmhouse type look. High quality materials, integrate features such as board form concrete throughout the site, elevated pavers, landscaping, the color palette. All of these things have to work together in order to create a sense of place. So we talked about the best-in-class tenants. We've really taken our time in terms of leasing. Right now we have 2 white tablecloth type restaurants. So the idea is to have an elevated presence, also to have quick serve restaurants, a grocer. There's a number of entertainment type uses. There's a fitness use and a sporting goods store. All of these are designed to work together in order to create a top tier shopping center, which will serve both Murrieta and the region. We talked about the spaces in between. We have to spend time trying to create a sense of place. So outdoor seating areas, comfortable outdoor seating areas, linking pedestrian accessibility, creating a walkable environment. All of these things are critical for us to create the synergy of the shopping center and a place where people will want to stay. It's really the spaces in between where you have to spend the time to really raise the quality level. So it's natural, inviting, refined, and timeless. We talked a little bit about the entitlements, retail entitlements, office entitlements, which the office market is not really performing. There's a hotel that's entitled, not likely that we're going to build a hotel. We had some entertainment for a long time. We worked with the theater. The theater industry has not really matured. It's gone through some adjustments. But what we have is a number of tenants that are entertainment related. And I think you'll be happy with where we end up. We have a number of restaurants. We have 27 spaces and probably 10 to 12 restaurants. We talked a little bit about the planning areas. Planning area 1 is that center planning area. That's the first phase. The process there is that's really driven by a number of restaurant on the pads and then a grocer anchor. So it's got a grocer, it's got a, currently we're negotiating with a major sporting goods store as well. This is a sense for the architecture. This is the grocer's architecture. So one of the things that's interesting about this is we really tried to work with a lighter type materials. So the clear story opens up the face. It will look great at night. All of that will be lit, and it'll be kind of a core for the entire shopping center. So this is just an overview of the signage. So we have a number of signs along Murrieta Hot Springs Road, number of pylons. There are 4 freeway signs. There's some entry signs, and then there are some identification signs on the corners. The identification signs were also specified in the original as well as the amended specific plan. But this will give you a sense for where the signage is. And then there are examples of some of the freeway pylon and other signage. C1, C2, C3, C4, and C5 are the Murrieta Hot Springs Road signs. This is another copy of the freeway pylon sign that we showed last time at our study session. We'll give you a sense for it. There's an electronic component of it. So the basic concept is that we want to create a timeless shopping center. We want to spend the time to have a high quality regional center that serves both the community and the region. And that concludes our presentation. Are there any questions?
Much appreciated. Thank you. Mr. Fisher?
When you were here last time, you said that you had potentially 7 active leases, 25 letters of intent. Has that increased any or decreased any?
I wouldn't say it's increased or decreased. There's a few more that have come in, a couple of letters of intent, but to be honest, we're focused on the major tenants, and those leases take a long time.
Got to get the major tenant before you can get the other ones.
Well, and they take a long time.
Yeah, they do.
It takes almost a year to complete a major tenant lease.
Are you still looking at delivering the shell buildings in 2026 and the grand opening possibly in 2027?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. You got a great project. You got an opportunity here to shine in the region, but you're also going to draw from many, many cities and counties above the region, in my opinion, if this is done right. And as you said, best of the class. So that's going to really take some of the neighboring cities' business and moving it over to here because they want to see that best of class kind of tenant. So I'm all in favor of this project, and the faster you can do it, the faster I'll be alive to see it.
Thank you. That's our goal too.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Vrooman?
No, I appreciate it. Great, excuse me, great development, and looking forward to seeing it open.
Thank you. The food truck piece, I think that is kind of adds a little Costco element, right? It's like, okay, what's going to be there? What's going to be there today? A little mystery shopping. I know from my days in the Northwest, they were very popular in Portland. You see them in the wine country. I think it's a lot better to be able to stage them strategically versus them just pulling up on the side of a roadway somewhere. And I think it's an excitement value add that ties into the goals. So excited to kind of see what that looks like. And I hope everyone gets a chance to see this, but you put together a very detailed, specific plan regarding the triangle that listed 12 goals. We've been talking about, the top 3, et cetera. I don't have a police reference because I was in the food business, so I'll give you an Oreo reference. When I look at goal 1, you had 12. I look at goal 1, implement the City of Murrieta general plan policies and objectives relevant to the site. And then 12, introduce new, unique, high-quality, progressive retail, entertainment, and service providers currently unavailable in the Murrieta market to serve local needs. I see an Oreo. And the 10 things in the middle are just as good as the top there. So appreciate all the details and the specifics that you put together. I know it's been a long journey. It looks like it's very well thought out. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I had. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to public testimony. It is 8:17. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comments, starting with proponents, opponents, then those neutral?
Seeing none.
Okay, then we will now close public testimony at 8:18. Gentlemen? Do we have a consensus? Any thoughts?
I still, I gotta go with what the recommendations of the police department. I think I would leave the details, size, scope, location of any type of police storefront, office front. I wouldn't even call it a substation, but I do think it's something that the developer wants. It's just a matter of logistics. I would like to include it into the conditions of approval, just to ensure that it gets done at some point in time in the project. So, just my thoughts.
Question: does that fall into the development agreement that we pushed to continue? Yeah.
No, the development plan and development agreement are 2 different items. You have the development plan before you. Development agreement is an, at this point, unknown document that may have other.
So there, as Dennis alluded to, there's an existing condition that's sort of a standard condition that says something to the effect that the applicant shall work with the police department on safety features as part of the development. Is there language you would want to add to that existing condition?
I would put just that a physical police office site location would be somewhere within the development, but the size, the scope, the location, I'll leave that to staff to work out. I'm not going to get caught in the weeds, but just a physical presence somehow would be in the development.
So I guess I'd ask Dennis if he thought some language to the effect that something to what Vice Chair Vrooman said would work in that condition, if we could add language, something to the effect that a police presence may be considered in negotiation with the applicant, something like that.
So it is a mitigation measure in the subsequent EIR, so we'd be amending that to add that language, or we add a specific condition of approval in the development plan itself. Those could be the 2 options, I guess, or we rest on whatever the language is on that mitigation measure, and hope that the developer and the police department can work on a amenable space and location.
I go back to previous plans and development, not development agreements, but conditions of approval on this exact same site in prior projects that were considered over the years, over the decades. And I just think it's something that we should stay consistent with that. So, however, but I would tone it down to some degree to leave it up to staff, the size, scope, and location. But
how about this?
Yes.
I have something, Vice Chair. So I'd say I'd recommend then approving it as staff has presented with the recommendation from the commission for that to be considered by staff, and that's the commission's recommendation to add that in, and we would include that when we go, because this will go to the city council. We can include that as a recommendation from the planning commission, and then, you know, if that is accepted, then it'll be accepted at that point or not. Like, but that's your recommendation to add it in, but you approve it as presented with that additional recommendation from the commission to consider that in working with the applicant.
Can we pull the up on the screen here?
Yeah, we can we switch the presentation back to the recommendation?
Mr. Fisher, what are your thoughts on that, on what was just said?
I'll leave that up to you.
Well, so if you're adding it in, that'll need to be something that you all consider as part of your recommendation.
Yeah, we'll need a motion in a second. So this would be similar to what we've done with other projects, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you, as a commission, to what Vice Chair Ruman was kind of getting at, he doesn't necessarily want to craft a condition here that locks them into something that they can't do. We have done things like this before where you take it as presented, but then you have an additional recommendation from the commission since you know it's going to the other hearing body for this other thing to be considered. That's essentially what you're saying, which we will then have to present to city council, right? It's your recommendation. But then it'll be decided at that point when it's at the city council.
If you're looking for the format of that, it would be to make a motion to approve the recommended action with the addition of a recommendation to the city council that a condition be imposed that considers a on-site police location, something like that. And then that'll move forward the resolution, and staff can work with the applicant on trying to come up with some agreeable language to present to the council, or the council consider on their own.
So hot.
Or maybe by the time it gets to council, that maybe between staff and the developer, they can identify location, time, and put that in there and solve the problem before it actually gets to the council.
Oh yeah, that can happen as well.
Okay.
Then it would appear as a recommendation of both staff and the planning commission, as opposed to just a recommendation of the planning commission.
I like that. I just don't want it to get lost and, you know, want to say, gosh, we had an opportunity to kind of lock it in, but we didn't. I'm okay with with this language that gets us to a place. It sounds like the developer and the city both want the same thing. It's just a matter of where, when, and on site. So I'm good with that.
Make a motion?
Yes. So we'll go ahead and. Well, do you want to read?
I can read the recommendation if it pleases the commission.
Right. We'll do that first.
So the recommendation is recommend to the City Council authorization to consider and approve an addendum to the subsequent environmental impact report pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, Section 15162 and 15164, and adopt a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Murrieta recommending City Council approval of the environmental determination, approve specific plan amendment 2023-0003, approve the development plan 2022-2705, and approve TTM 2022-2706 on a 64.3 acre area located south of Murrieta Hot Springs Road and generally bounded by Interstate 15 and Interstate 215. Reading the one in the staff report. In an area generally located south of Murrieta Hot Springs Road and generally bounded by I-15 and Interstate 215 with Vice Chair Ruman's additional recommendation.
With the recommendation, the Planning Commission to council that they consider an off-site police station or office site on the location. On the site. Yes, on the site as part of the development. Size, scope, location on the property can be determined by staff and the developer.
So do we have a motion? Do we have a motion and a second?
Oh, we have a second? I didn't catch the second.
So that was my motion?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So second.
Do we have a second? I will second. Madam Secretary, we have a motion and a second. Will you please do a roll call vote?
Chair Harlan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vrooman.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher. Aye. Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Wojciech recusing himself.
All right, and we will continue the development agreement to the Planning Commission meeting of August 14th, correct?
Correct. Development agreement is continued.
Yep. All right, full agenda today. Round and third headed for home. Mr. City Planner, any comments?
Of course. So the commission has acted on a number of items tonight. Some of the items are appealable. If you'd like to file an appeal, you can come to the planning counter, talk to planning staff. You can also approach me or contact me, the city planner, Carl Steele, and we can discuss the options on an appeal. We have continued 2 items tonight. The first item, the MTA Tire Shop, has been continued to the August 14th meeting, the next meeting of the Planning Commission, as well as a portion of this final item. The development agreement has also been continued to the next meeting of the Planning Commission on August 14th. And I look forward to seeing the commission then. And Commissioner Wojciech will have an excused absence at that meeting. He has a family event that week. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, appreciate your guidance in keeping us on the straight and narrow.
Thank you.
Any comments for us?
I have no comments for this evening. Thank you.
Colleagues, any comments, Mr. Fisher? No. I just, for anybody out there looking online that happened to view this, and or for those here, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of details and a lot of specifics that went into today's meetings, and that doesn't get done unless you have a very talented, passionate staff to make that happen. So on behalf of the residents of the city, thank you all for what you're doing to bring this forward and make us all better. So much appreciated.
Well said.
So with no further business, may I ask for an adjournment? We ready to go home? All good?
Good.
All right.